Hello everyone, welcome to CSS3 Part 2. If you haven't checked my Part 1 video, the link will be in the description and the card for you to check out. If you're brand new to web development, I also recommend you to check my first video in this channel, which was about HTML, how you know everything about HTML, structure, web page, and everything in details. But if you already saw those videos and you are very comfortable with HTML and CSS, the basics, at least how we include CSS in HTML, then welcome to this part 2. Today we are basically going to do is deep dive into properties and values more, just try to learn something. And we are also going to be working with w3schools.com, fantastic website for learning web development. So we are just going to go from their reference points. Okay, now I know that in the part 1 I said that we will be working on Visual Studio Code, which is a fantastic code editor for web development. Then I decided that I am actually going to be introducing codepen for you right now, and then when we are actually going to be building a project, we are going to use Visual Studio Code. But for now, I think something online editing code is actually going to be really good. Okay, so codepen is completely free service. You can open an account. You can work with codepen without even opening an account. It's going to let you do it, but if you want to save your work, you need to open an account. So I already have an account. My username is w3tsa here. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we are going to explain HTML, CSS in codepen. All right, we don't need the JS right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and close this window like so. We'll be working on just HTML and CSS. This is going to be working as our browser. Okay, so before I start working with CSS, this HTML, now as you know that when you're creating an HTML file, you have to do bracket, exclamation, and then doc type, and then space HTML, and then you close that angle bracket with. Then you introduce HTML, and in there you do head, and then you do body. Okay, and in that body you will probably have this is a web page. Okay, and you can see it is showing right here. I don't have to save. I can manually click on save, but after a few seconds when I'm done, it's automatically refreshed the browser and it's showing me in real time. Okay, now for the codepen, I don't actually have to write any of this. I can directly write h1. This is a web page, just like so, and it will work. Okay, so that's the only difference between Visual Studio and codepen. Visual Studio code editor, you have to write doc type, head tag, all the meta tag, body, and everything. But here it is for learning purpose. It is for prototyping purpose. Codepen actually takes care of the body element, head element behind the scene. Okay, we don't even have to link the CSS to the HTML like we learned in the previous video, because it is already linked behind the scene. Okay, makes sense? All right, so let's dive into. I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and then it goes away. Okay, so we already know how to include CSS in a web page. So I'm gonna have an H1. Another thing is that if you write H1 and just press tab, it's automatically going to create that opening tag and closing tag for you. So that's a nice feature with codepen as well. I'm gonna say this is let's just say headline. Okay, I'm gonna save. You see this is a headline. I'm gonna make it just one word right here. This is a headline. I'll also have a p tag. I'm gonna say this is a p tag, and you see that it is showing up right here. So CSS, this is a separate style sheet that we are going to style with. It's already linked with the HTML. So what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of the headline. Okay, So I'm going to first select it. So selector would be h1 in this case, and space. I'm going to open a curly brace, and I'm going to have it on its own line for readability purpose. I'm going to say color because that's the property I want to change. I want to change it to blue, and then semicolon to end this pair and property value pair. Okay, and you can see headline is immediately turned into blue. Okay, we also learned about text transform, and that's going to be uppercase, and that's what I'm going to do too. So it is all uppercase right now. So that's how you select and then put CSS style. Okay, now here's let's talk about selectors. Okay, let's talk about selectors. So you see that h1, this is the headline h1, and I select h1 and the style applied to h1. What if I have another h1 like so, and if I save this, you can see that h1 is also has the same styles applied to it. What if I want a different style to the second h1? What do you want to do right now? Because at this point, if I just selected h1, it's going to apply all the h1 in your web page, the same styles. Okay, now this is where we're going to learn about class and ID selector. Okay, now what is class? Let's talk about class first. I can introduce a class attribute in the h1 like so, space class, okay, equal, and then quotation, because it's an attribute. Okay, you know how to write an attribute, class equals and quotation mark, and within this quotation mark I can actually write anything. I can actually create a name for this h1 specifically. Okay, I can actually say this is a headline. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. Okay, so since it's a headline, I can just say this, the class is a headline. Okay, and then for the second one, I can say the class is going to be, let's say, second h1. Okay, dash. Since this is two words, I'm going to introduce a dash right here. So this has a class of headline. This has a class of second dash h1. All right. So now this class, these names are different. Now I can select the class instead of h1 to style each one. Okay, now how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna delete this, and for this, let's say the first one, the headline, I wanted to do blue, and the second one I wanted to red. So instead of selecting h1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write headline, because that's the name of the class. That's the name of the class. Okay, I'm gonna say headline. Now to make sure the CSS knows that this is a class, okay, what I have to do is I have to do a period or full stop in front of the class name. Okay, this full stop or period is actually indicating that this is a class. All right, and then just like I'm going to open up curly braces in a new line, I'm going to do the same thing, color blue. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here, full stop or period, and then I'm going to say second, because that's the name of the second h1, second class, dash h1, and open curly braces, and then I'm going to do color red. Okay, and then I will save it, and you can see it changes to blue and red. Right, so that's what class is to identify specifically that you want to the element that you want to style with. Okay, just like class, we also have something called ID. Okay, same thing, same usability like class. I'm going to say ID is an attribute equals quotation mark, and let's say this is going to be let's say I will just name it P1. Okay, and here I want to style, instead of saying P, I want to style it with the selector of the ID. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write P1. Now in front of P1, to let the CSS know that it is not a class, it is an ID itself. To indicate that, I have to do a hash or a pound sign in front of P1. Okay, hash or a pound sign. Okay, so full stop or period makes it a class. pound or hash makes it an ID. Okay, and then the same thing here. I'm going to do color, and I'm going to do purple, and it changed it to purple. Okay, so that's what class and IDs are for. ID is more powerful. You can have the same class. Now you can definitely have, let's say, another H1. Okay, I'm just gonna just copy this and paste it right here. And this is gonna be headline 2. I can have multiple classes. Okay, and you can see that it's have the same color. Okay, but ID should be unique. Okay, ID should be unique. ID is more selective than class. Okay, the CSS, what CSS does is CSS first, if you are selecting using a tag name or element name, CSS first look for the tag name. Okay, then CSS looks for the class name, and then CSS looks for the ID name. Okay, so if it's, let's say, let's do an experiment. Let's say class equal, let's do P2. Okay, let's say this P writing here, paragraph here, has an ID and also has a class. So with the ID selector, I said the color should be purple. Okay, and you can see that color is purple. Now, what if I also change their class and say the color should be, let's say, green? Okay, let's do that. Let's do like full stop and then P2, and let's do green. Save. And you can see that it doesn't change because ID has more preference than the class. ID is more powerful than the class. Okay, if CSS look at sentence or anything or element that or content that has an ID, it is going to put the style to the ID first and ignore everything else. Ignore the class, ignore the tag. Okay, after the ID comes class, and after the class comes tag. Okay, make sense? All right. Now, another thing I want to mention here in terms of specificity is that if here in the P2, you can see that same sentence have class P2 and also ID P1, but if in the P2, it's getting ignored because it has an ID. But if I do here, after green space, I do exclamation and I write important. If I do this, you can see that immediately it changes to green because important has the most preference. Okay, important is the most powerful even than ID. Okay, CSS will put the style and ignore everything else, but only put the styles that has the important keyword with it. Okay, makes sense? So the most powerful is important, then comes ID, then class. And you can definitely have multiple classes, but you should only have just one unique ID. Okay, that's pretty much the selectors when it comes to it. So ID and class and important. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I'm gonna go ahead and delete all this. Delete all this here. Okay, now I am going to go to okay, so that's the selectors in W3 schools, and we have talked about class and IDs. Okay, CSS how to, this is how to include CSS in your HTML. We talked about it in the first part of the video. Let's talk about the comments. Okay, how can you comment? You know how you can comment on HTML. Now let's learn how you can comment on CSS. Okay, CSS you can comment on, you're gonna do /, you're gonna do star, okay? And then this is the first opening tag, and the ending tag would be star first, and then / after. Anything in between, this is a comment. And you can see that the editor is making them gray looking, okay? Because it's basically saying that it is comment. It is not going to show here. It does not have any effect whatsoever on the HTML that is linked to, because it's just a comment, okay? Perfect. So that's how you comment tag works in CSS. All right, perfect. Now let's see. Now let's talk about colors. Okay, let's talk about color properties. So let's do P here, and let's have, this is a paragraph. Okay, so we have this right here. This is a paragraph. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select by tag. I'm not using any class or ID. I'm going to open a curly braces, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a color. Okay, and I'm going to do red. Okay, there you go. I'm also going to make this font size. I want to make the font here a little bit bigger so that you can see it better. So font size, I'm going to say, let's say 48 pixel. Let me see. I think it might be too big, but oh, awesome. Big. All right, this is a paragraph. Okay, so for the color, you can see that I can just put the name. Like I can put red, I can put black here, and it's going to be black. Okay, I can put blue, light blue. I can even put like gray here. It's gonna be grayish. I can put light blue, and it's gonna be light blue. Okay, but there are thousands of colors out there. Okay, what if you want to use a specific color that you don't have a name or you don't know the name? Okay, what are you gonna do in that case? So instead of color, CSS also accepts something called hex value of a color. Okay, so I searched color picker in Google, and you can see that it's just a color picker. Okay, now there is a hex value that I was talking about. It's a number. Okay, hash or pound sign, and then 9E4A4. Now if you change the point here, it is also changing the hex number. So each color point it has a hex number to it. Okay, now you can, let's say this one, like orangey or kind of reddish color. Let's do this particular color, and I don't know the name of this particular color. If I can, it looks like orange. Now I can do orange, and it looks like this, but I think it's a little bit darker. Okay, so what if I want the exact color? I can actually copy this hex value, and I can put this instead of orange. I can put this hex value instead of just saying orange, and I believe it's just a little bit darker, I believe. So let's do something like this. Let's do that. Okay, so you can see the difference, and make sure you have to put the hash. Without the hash or pound, it's just not going to work. Now it's a little bit darker. So color accept the name of the color, of course, but it also accept hex value. And most of the cases you will be dealing with hex value than just a color name. Okay. Now you can do another thing with this. You can also, so you can see there is a hex number. There is also something called RGB. So RGB refers to like red, green, and blue. So every color is a combination of red, green, and blue, right? So this is the red value for this particular color. Okay, 212, and then green value is 70, and then 0 value is for the black. All right, so you can also use RGB instead of hex. So what you're gonna do here is I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm gonna say RGB and then open parentheses, and in this parentheses I'm just gonna copy this 212, 70, and 0. And if I save this, and you see the color change a little bit. In fact, let's make it a different color so it's more prominent. Let's do something for this color. So I can just copy this number, paste it in here, save, and there we go. The color changed automatically. All right, so this is RGB, so red, green, and blue value. Okay, there you go. You can also use HSL numbers as well. So HSL, hue, saturation, and lightness. So you can actually do, let's try here HSL, and then open the parentheses, and let's just copy and paste it. Here it's going to give you a degree, but you don't need the degree sign when you are actually referencing to HSL 221, 96, 42%. So hue, saturation, and lightness. You can actually take the saturation a bit, like let's say 80% instead of 90, 96%. And if you save, and it's going to be a little, let's say if I want to do like 10%. Say it's more grayish, so you can work with HSL as well. So, okay, hue, saturation, and lightness. Okay, you can do that. Another thing with the RGB that you can do, let's say RGB Okay, so red is going to be 0, green is going to be 0, and blue is going to be 0 too. So what that means, it means that everything is 0, means it's black. Okay, it's pure black. RGB, there's another proper letter that you can add, which is A, RGBA, and A gives you another parameter that is going to be from 0 to 1. 0 means it is going to be completely transparent. Okay, you can see it, it's transparent. But if you put 1, then it is opaque, or you can see it. Okay, if you do 0.5, then you see that it is actually going to be a little bit grayish, the color, the effect. So this is basically the opacity. So if it's 0, it's totally transparent. If it's 1, then it's opaque. So 0.5, if you want to add some color but you don't want the color to be kind of muted, then you can use something like this one. Okay, so that's what color is. You can use HSL, you can use RGB. So after the color, let's do blue here, safe. After the color, let's see what other things we can do here. We are going to talk about backgrounds. Okay, let's have a background. So right now the whole background is white. You can also, because you know that everything here is wrapped with a body element. Okay, even if you are not seeing this in HTML, because body and head tag and everything else like that is happening in the background in codepen, but it does have a body. I can actually do body, so I can select that body because that's an element as well, and open curly braces, and I can say background color. I can change this background color. Right now it's white. I can change this to light blue and semicolon, and you can see the whole background change to light blue, and that's what background color does. If I do here, let's say instead of introduce an element that is going to be div, okay, and this particular div, I'm not going to say anything actually. I'm going to make a box out of this div, and let me show you how you can do this. Now I can obviously add a class to make it more selective, but since I only have one div, I'm just going to select the div. Okay, right now the div is empty. That's why you are not seeing anything in the browser rendering. But if I give it a width of, let's say 200, let's do 300 pixel. Okay, that's the size, that's a pixel wise. This is the pixel, you know, like TV or monitor or device display has pixel. Okay, now the width is it's gonna take 300 pixel for that particular div. I can also do height, which will have the exact 300 pixel as well. So it's kind of like a square, but you still don't see anything because I didn't give any background color with it. So that means because it doesn't have any content and it doesn't have any color, it's there, but it's taking the default background color of the body light blue. So if I change that, if I just say background color, let's do a red and a semicolon, and now you can see automatically there is a box. Okay, now this is the div right here. So I gave a div with the width, so which is from here to here, it's a 300 pixel, also height 300 pixel from here to here, so it's a square box. Okay, and it has a background color of red. Okay, so that's what background color does. What do we have here? So we also have something called background image. Okay, let's work on the background image here. Let's do body. Let's have a background image. Okay, colon, and background image actually takes a URL and then parentheses. Now parentheses, we're gonna go to pixels and get an image to add to this URL. Okay, so for the background image, so I went to pixels.com. Here you can actually find very, very good quality pictures if you want to use, and there are all kind of free. You don't have, like, it's nice to give them your some sort of credit, but you don't have to. Pixels is like, you know, people right now here, like Felix Mittermeier, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but I'm going to use this photo here. Okay, so thanks Felix for submitting this photograph into pixels. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go and copy image link. So right click, copy image link. I'm going to go to the my CodePen, and here I am going to I believe I would need quotation. In that quotation, if I paste this, now you can see the image is right now turns into the background. So I can actually insert not only a color, okay, I can actually insert a background image as well. Now you can see the image is blurry, okay, and that could be for the reason because there is another. So whenever you are using background image, you also want to do let's see, background, I believe position. What does it do? Okay, I believe background position, like where I want the picture to be positioned at, it is center. If I do background size and then do cover, when you do background position, the picture is positions dead center on your web page, okay? And then background size, it's covered. Now you don't see that hazy effect anymore, okay? Now sometimes the pictures, if it's smaller, it's a bigger picture. That's why it's covering every pixel of the viewport. But sometimes if it's like a small picture, it might be repeated. So in that case, what you can do is background repeat colon, and you just say no repeat. Okay, that will do the trick. So that is background image. So whenever you are using background image, you have to position it center, so it's in the dead center, and then also background size would be cover, so it's not going to be hazy or blurry. And background repeat, you want to say no repeat. But if you want it to repeatedly appear on your web page, you can say you don't even have to mention, because by default it's repeat on. Okay, you can actually see here position, you can do right top. Background repeat here, they did no repeat. So another one here is background attachment. Background attachment is fixed. Let's see, try it yourself. So here, this is the background image that they worked on, and body background image, this is the image 3 PNG, this is the image, and then background repeat, they say no repeat. So if I let's delete this and run, you see the image is repeated multiple times. So that's a default behavior, okay? So if you don't want that, you just want to specify background repeat, no repeat, and run, and it's going to only appear once, okay? Now background position, here is a right, so it's far right here, and top, it is on the top. So if I don't mention top and run, you can see it is now in center. Okay, by default it is center, but if you want it to appear at the top, then it will appear at the top. Now if I scroll, you see the image doesn't move, okay, and that is happening because of the background attachment fixed. If I cut that and run, it is still in center, but you see that it is now moving with the scroll. Okay, so if you don't want this image to move with the scroll, then you can have a background attachment fixed. So it is fixed to a certain position, and it is not going to be move with the scroll bar. Okay, so that's pretty much with the background image. All right, let's go about border, margin, and padding. This is actually, all right, you have to understand something called CSS Box-model, and this is important. This is a very important concept, okay? So all I have to do here, I'm going to open up a div, all right? I'm going to delete all this, save, so we start from the beginning. I'm going to add comment. I'm going to say Box-model. All right. Now this is important. Okay. So what is Box-model? Anything. Let's say this is a div. Let's do an H1 here. Anything. This is headline. Okay. I have a headline here. Now this particular headline, this is the content, every element on HTML has a box model. It is in a box, okay, and this looks like this. So this is your content. That means this is the content, meaning this is the paragraph, this is a headline, okay. All right, then it has some space around it, okay. The space, that space, this is the content, okay, and then after this it is some space here, and that's called padding, okay. This is the inner space. All right, so your content appears somewhere here in this boundary, then you also have a space that's called padding, and that's that. And after the padding you also have border, okay, and after the border you have margin. Margin is outer space. That means after, like if there is another another headline here, then the space between this one and this one, you can see there's a little bit of space right there, right? So that is causing by margin. Now by default the browser actually has a padding and margin placed by default, okay. Okay, so H1 is in its box, okay. So how can you see this? Well, first of all, let's do, because both are here, is H1. I'm gonna do, this is first. I'm gonna say this is first, and I'm gonna select this period first. That's a class, and I'm gonna do something called a border, okay. Border colon. Now border takes 3 values. Okay, the how thick you want the border to be. So let's say right now I want it to be 1 pixel. And do you want solid or dotted? There are 2 options. So I'll say solid, and the color of the border, I'm gonna say black. Okay, now you can see this is the border. Okay, so this is the content right here, this is headline, and this is the border. Okay, now the border and the content, in between the content and the border there is a space, and that is called padding. Okay, you can also make the border even thicker. So if I, instead of 1, if I do 10 pixels, save, you can see now it is a thicker border. Okay, so the border also has some space attribute attached with it, and then the content and the border. So let's say if I do, so this is the border, if I do padding, and if I do padding about 2 pixel, let's see if you see that it spreads, because it's now making space, more space, which is a 2 pixel. If I do 20 pixel, it's even gonna get bigger. You see, because now between the content and the border there is a 20 pixel space, okay, around the content. So here's a 20 pixel, here's a 20 pixel in between, in that. Okay, so this is something, this is the padding. Okay, the space between the content and the border, this is a padding, and the border itself can be thick, it has a space. Right now it's 10 pixel, and also the difference from here, from the border to another. So let's do this. Let's have a class here as well, and then do second, and I'm going to do second. And here I will do the same thing. I will do border, and save. And you can see, now you see that there's a space between them, right? Okay, perfect. Now if I say here margin equals to 0, save. Okay, this doesn't affect because it has a margin. So let's say I want to do a margin here as well, and I'm going to do margin 0. Let's see what happened. And you see there's no margin, it's just like, it looks like this is just one line because there is absolutely no margin. Okay, so the content, then some space, and that is described by padding, and then your border, and then your border could be like 1 pixel, 20 pixel, whatever you prefer. Okay, and then after the border there is a margin, and that margin is the space between your one content right here, the first content, and the second content right here. Okay, so if I do here is like 20 pixel, and also do here 20 pixel, save, and now you can see both are around. So when you say margin 20 pixel, it is going to put a margin of 20 pixels to the left, to the top, to the right and down of that content of that H1 class. Same thing with this one as well. It has a margin of left, which is 20 pixel, top 20 pixel, down 20 pixel, and right 20 pixel. Okay, so that's pretty much is the box model. Okay, so content, and then you have padding. Okay, that's between content and your border, and then your border, and then outside of your border is a margin, and that is called box model. Okay, content, the content of the box where text and images appear. Padding clears an area around the content. The padding is transparent. Border, a border that goes around the padding and content. Margin clears an area outside of the border. The margin is transparent as well. Now, I told you that border actually takes 3, so solid, so 10 pixel how thick it is, and then solid because it's a solid line, and then the color of it. Okay, solid also have another option that is called dotted, if I spell it right, and it just looks like this. It's just going to be a dotted line instead of a solid line. Okay. All right, so that is box model for you, and it's important because when you are going to create a layout for the web page, this will come in handy when you're going to actually place one item with reference to another element. This will come in handy. Okay, so I believe that will do for the second part of CSS. I will see you in the next one soon. Okay, so just if you're not subscribed, subscribe so that you can get notification once my video gets uploaded. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Okay, all right, thank you, peace.